Welcome back, Sebastian here. So final video of this series looking at each Formula One team after roughly the quarter mark of the 2023 Formula One season. And today's video will be about, of course, Red Bull, the team leading the Constructors' Championship. So let's take a look at how they've done at each race so far. So at the opening Bahrain Grand Prix of the season, Verstappen P1, Perez P2. Next race of the season, Saudi Arabia, Perez P1 and Verstappen P2. Of course, Verstappen had to fight his way back from, I believe, 15th on the grid because of issues in qualifying for him. Third race of the season, Australian Grand Prix, Verstappen P1 and Perez P5. So Perez crashed his very first lap of qualifying, had to start from the back of the grid and could only work his way up to 5th place. Fourth race of the season, Azerbaijan Grand Prix. In the sprint, Verstappen finished 3rd and Perez finished 1st. And in the main Grand Prix, Perez won and Verstappen finished P2. Although, of course, Verstappen was leading before the pit stops and all of that kind of pit stop drama happened. Last race we had was the Miami Grand Prix, Verstappen P1 and Perez P2. And of course, Verstappen started from P9 after not setting a time in Q3. So now looking at the head-to-head between Perez and Verstappen, Verstappen is ahead with 119 points to Perez's 105. In the race head-to-head, Verstappen is ahead 3-2, and in the quali head-to-head, Verstappen is ahead as well, 3-2. The qualifying delta, there was a lot. Red Bulls have had a surprisingly high number of issues in qualifying this year, and I think, so for this data, I basically took the time from the last session where both drivers set a time. So for example, that would have been Q1 in Jeddah, as well as Q2 in Miami. Of course, Perez didn't set a time in Australia, so I didn't bother to include that. But when you average those all together, it's about 0.31 seconds, or about 0.3 of a second in favor of Verstappen, which is about what I would expect the gap between Verstappen and Perez to be on average. If you just look at the races where they haven't had any issues in qualifying, I think there's only like 1 or 2 races worth of data, so it's like 1/10 and a half, 2/10 I think. So it's a little bit bigger than this gap, but thought I would just tell you both. So now just for something fun, so looking at how each driver's done in my power rankings through the first 5 races, Verstappen has on average been 1.4, and Perez's position has on average been exactly 4th. So both drivers I think have been pretty good this season. Of course, Verstappen a little bit better than Perez. Overall, I think as a team for Red Bull, this has been a dream start to the season. It's almost perfect. The only time that they haven't finished 1-2 was, of course, the Australian Grand Prix, where Perez finished 5th. But besides that, I think they're extremely happy with the results. They're probably a bit surprised even that they're this far ahead of the next fastest team, but I think both their main rivals from last year, Ferrari and Mercedes, have taken a bit of a step backwards. So now, moving on from that, let's look at Red Bull in the Constructors. So in 2022, after 5 rounds, they had 151 points, which was, I believe, second in the Constructors, right behind Ferrari. And their average gap to pole was 0.221 seconds. So it's about on average 0.2 off pole to start 2022. In 2023, however, 224 points, so about 75 points more than last year, which is already very hard given they started last year so well as well. Their gap to pole this year is 0.038 seconds. So of course they've gotten all poles but 1, so that's why the gap to pole is not 0. So they've had a very excellent start. I think for Red Bull, I think if I was them, I would probably, of course with the penalty from the cost cap breach last year, they will have, that penalty will have a negative effect on their development of the 2024 car, as well as the second half of this year. So I think if I'm Red Bull, I see them so far ahead, and my car is so much better than all of my competitors, especially in race pace. I would start transitioning to the 2024 car right away, especially as it looks like the regulations are going to be pretty stable going into that. So I think all in all, for Red Bull, it's been almost dream start. They're the fastest car in qualifying by a little bit on average, and in the race pace it's not even close. I don't think, in my time watching Formula One, I don't think I've seen a car this good in race pace this consistently. I haven't been watching for that long, I think only till about 2017, but you'd have to start going back to about like 2016, 2014, 2015, the early turbo hybrid era to see a car that's this much better, particularly in the races. I know the 2020 Mercedes was very good. I feel like that car was better in qualifying than this year's Red Bull, but I think race pace Red Bull was probably a bit better, like a bigger gap to their competitors. 2019 as well, I think, is probably the closest. I know that the first half of the season, Mercedes were almost untouchable in the races. So that's all for Red Bull. This concludes my look at each team after the quarter mark of the season. Of course, hopefully, we will have the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix this coming weekend, and I'll be doing a preview for that tomorrow. I think I'm holding off on recording that video though a little bit, because I know there's still quite a bit of uncertainty with, I know the weather has been really bad, and I hope, people who live in that region are okay and are safe. But I'm just going to try to delay it as late as I can, so that hopefully we can get as much information about this weekend. Of course, I would love for it to go ahead, but safety first. If it's not safe, then it's not safe to race. So that's all for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.